There's a fluid sitting inside your transmission right now that 80% of car owners have never checked, never changed, and never once thought about. And the part it protects costs between $3,000 and $8,000 to replace. Not someday. Not if you're unlucky. Right now. Sitting there. Degrading. I'm going to tell you how to check it yourself in the next 3 minutes using a white paper towel. I'm going to tell you the real service interval, not the one printed in your owner's manual, because those two numbers are not the same. And I'm going to show you exactly what a service department does with the difference between those two numbers every single day. But first, you need to understand why you've never heard any of this before. Because it's not an accident. I spent 15 years inside this industry, stood at auction lanes, watched transmission-failed vehicles get cleaned up, get vague service records stapled to the window, and get rolled back onto used car lots. Not once. Hundreds of times. And I want you to think about who bought those cars. Someone did. Maybe someone who checked the Carfax, liked the price, and drove it home thinking they got a deal. 2 years later, they're standing in a shop parking lot staring at a repair quote that's more than they paid for the car. I left because I couldn't keep watching that happen. What I do now is this. So let me show you the exact mechanism they depend on you not knowing. There are exactly 4 service reminders built into your dashboard: oil life, tyre pressure, coolant temperature, and battery. Your manufacturer spent engineering hours designing those alerts because every one of them drives you into a service department on a predictable schedule. Revenue tied to a warning light. Transmission fluid has no warning light. No countdown. No amber indicator. Nothing. That is not an oversight. That is a product decision. The average automatic transmission service generates between $250 and $450 at a dealership. The fluid itself, bought retail at AutoZone, costs $8 to $15 per quart. A standard service takes a technician 20 minutes. The margin on that service, the spread between what it costs to perform and what they charge you, is where the money lives. And the longer you go without knowing this service exists, the more likely you are to need something far more expensive. Because here's what actually happens inside a transmission when the fluid goes bad. And I want you to picture this. Inside your automatic transmission are dozens of clutch packs, friction discs clamped together under hydraulic pressure to shift gears. Fresh transmission fluid is red, slightly sweet-smelling, and does 2 jobs at once. It lubricates those clutch packs and carries heat away from the friction surfaces. That fluid starts degrading around 30,000 miles for most driving conditions. Heat is the primary killer. City traffic, towing, stop-and-go commutes accelerate that degradation fast. As the fluid breaks down, it stops carrying heat. The clutch packs run hotter. The fluid turns brown, then dark brown, then black. It starts depositing varnish, a lacquer-like residue, directly onto the precision surfaces it was supposed to protect. By the time you smell something burnt coming from your transmission, that varnish has been building for thousands of miles. The NHTSA receives tens of thousands of transmission failure complaints every year. A's Repair Cost Data puts automatic transmission replacement among the 5 most expensive repairs in the country, averaging $3,500 to $5,000 for a remanufactured unit, labour not included. European and luxury vehicles run past $8,000. A drain and fill service at an independent shop, $80 to $200. The fluid itself, $8 to $15 a quart. Someone in a corporate office did that math, and they built a product with no warning light. Now here's what I want you to actually do. Right now, not after this video, right now, I want you to go out to your car, pull the hood, and do what I'm about to walk you through. If you're watching this parked somewhere, even better, because the first tool costs nothing, and it'll tell you more about the health of your transmission than anything a service advisor will ever volunteer. Tool 1. The white paper towel. On most vehicles built before 2010, There's a transmission dipstick under the hood. It's usually labelled in red or yellow, and it sits toward the rear of the engine bay, closer to the firewall than the front. Pull it out. Wipe it clean on a white paper towel. Reinsert it fully, pull it out again, and look at what's on that towel. What you're looking for is colour and texture. Fresh fluid is red, almost pink, and translucent. You can see light through it. It smells faintly sweet. If that's what you see, your fluid is in decent shape. Fluid past its interval is dark brown, opaque, may smell faintly of burnt oil. That transmission needs a service. It hasn't failed yet, but the clock is running. Fluid that has already started causing damage is black, gritty to the touch, smells burnt. And here's the one that should stop you cold. Metallic particles on the towel. Tiny flecks of silver or grey in the fluid. That is clutch material. That's your transmission telling you it has already started eating itself from the inside. If you see black fluid, don't floor it. Don't tow anything. Get a service scheduled this week, not because it'll fix the damage, but because continued heat and friction on degraded fluid will accelerate the failure. The difference between a $200 service at that stage and a $4,000 rebuild can be measured in weeks. Now, vehicles built after 2010, many of them are sealed. No dipstick. The manufacturer calls this lifetime fluid. There is no such thing as lifetime fluid. What that phrase means in practice is, we moved the access point so that you need a shop to check it, and we buried the service interval deep enough in the manual that most owners never find it. These transmissions still fail. They fail on the same timeline as every other transmission. Degraded fluid, heat, varnish, clutch wear. The service just happens at a shop using a fill plug instead of a dipstick. If your vehicle is sealed, make a note. You need to ask specifically for a transmission fluid service at your next shop visit. Don't ask if they check it. Ask when it was last done and request documentation. If they can't produce it, assume it hasn't been done. Tool 2. The $10 strip that dealers don't mention. Here's where it gets interesting, and this is the one I want you to use before you ever sign paperwork on a used car. Fram makes a transmission fluid test strip. Looks like a pH strip from a chemistry class. It costs about $10 for a pack of 10, available on Amazon, at AutoZone, at O'Reilly, and it tells you the oxidation level, contamination, and degradation of the fluid in about 60 seconds. You dip the strip into the dipstick tube, pull it out, and match the colour change against the guide printed on the package. 5 colours, 5 stages of fluid condition. No interpretation needed. The strip either confirms the fluid is fine, or it shows you exactly how far gone it is. A seller can show you a receipt that says transmission service 12,000 miles ago. A test strip shows you what's actually in the fluid right now. I've stood at auction and seen vehicles with full service binders, organised, stamped, dated, come back on a test strip as severely degraded. Receipts are paper. Fluid is chemistry. Chemistry doesn't lie. At a private sale or a dealer lot, you can ask to check the fluid before agreeing to anything. If the seller refuses, if they say you can't pop the hood before purchase, that refusal is the answer. Walk away. Because in 15 years, I never once saw a seller with good fluid turn down a dipstick check. Use the strip. It costs $1 per test. The transmission it might save you from buying costs $4,000. Tool 3. The interval. They don't print on the sticker. Here's the thing about your owner's manual transmission service interval. It was written by the same company that profits when your vehicle needs a rebuild outside of warranty. That's not a conspiracy, it's an incentive structure. Extended intervals look like consumer benefits. They're not. What actual transmission rebuilders, the people who crack open failed units and look at the damage, consistently recommend is this: fluid every 30,000 to 45,000 miles under normal driving. If you tow anything, if you drive in heavy stop-and-go traffic, If you live somewhere with extreme summer heat, drop that to 25,000 miles. Heat is the variable. Heat is always the variable. CVT transmissions, the continuously variable type, found in most Nissans, many Hondas, and a wide range of Subarus and Toyotas, need fluid every 25,000 to 30,000 miles. Full stop. CVT fluid degrades faster than conventional ATF. CVT replacements run $3,500 to $5,000 at minimum. The CVT fluid itself costs $20 to $40 per quart, and most units need 4 to 6 quarts. That's a $200 service, protecting a $5,000 part. Dual clutch transmissions. Follow the manufacturer interval closely, but do not let a service advisor tell you the fluid is lifetime. Ask to see documentation of the last service. If they don't have it, that's your baseline. The fluid has never been changed. Here's what I want you to do right now. Check your odometer. Check your last service receipt for any mention of transmission fluid. If you can't find it or don't remember, treat it as never done. Write that mileage down. Set a reminder for 30,000 miles from now. That's the whole system. Tool 4. The fluid specification and why the wrong one destroys transmissions. This is where people spend money they didn't need to spend, and it's where shops make money they shouldn't be making. Not all transmission fluid is the same. Each transmission is engineered around a specific fluid, viscosity and additive package. Use the wrong one, and you're not just skipping maintenance. You're actively damaging the friction surfaces, altering hydraulic pressure, and in some cases voiding the remaining warranty on a rebuilt unit. Open your owner's manual. Look for the transmission fluid specification. It'll say something like Dexron 6, or Mercon LV, or ATF Plus 4, or Honda ATF DW1, or Toyota WS, or ZF Lifeguard 8. That string of letters is not interchangeable with anything else. That is the spec. That is what goes in your transmission. Do not accept universal ATF. When a shop tells you they use a universal fluid, what they're telling you is that they buy one product in bulk for every vehicle they service. That fluid meets some of those specs, not all of them. The transmission in your specific vehicle was not engineered around a compromise product. Valvoline, Mobil One, and AC Delco all make spec-matching fluids. Fluids manufactured to meet the exact specification for your vehicle. They're at AutoZone, O'Reilly, Advance Auto Parts, and Amazon for $8 to $15 per quart. The dealership charges $12 to $18 per quart for the same product as part of a $400 service that takes 20 minutes. Same fluid, new packaging, 3 times the price. Tool 5. Drain and fill versus flush. One of these can kill a marginal transmission. When you go to a shop for a transmission service, they'll offer you 2 options. You need to know which one to take, because the wrong one on the wrong vehicle can cause a failure that wouldn't have happened otherwise. A drain and fill drops the transmission pan, drains the fluid by gravity, which removes roughly 40 to 50% of the total volume, replaces the filter if it's accessible, and refills with fresh fluid. This is the standard service. This is what a healthy transmission on a regular maintenance schedule needs. A complete flush uses a machine to force new fluid through the entire system, replacing close to 100% of the volume. On a healthy transmission with fluid that's slightly past interval, a flush is fine. On a high-mileage transmission with severely degraded fluid, the black, gritty, varnish depositing kind, a flush can kill it. The fresh fluid dislodges varnish deposits that were, at that point, acting as a seal between worn surfaces. Surfaces that were marginal but holding. The flush cleans them and removes the only thing keeping them from slipping. A transmission that was a $200 service away from lasting another 3 years becomes a $4,000 rebuild. The rule, fluid in decent shape, go flush. Dark brown or black fluid on a high-mileage vehicle. Do a drain and fill, drive 3,000 miles, do another one. Step the contamination down gradually. Let the system adapt. An independent shop should charge $80 to $200 for a drain and fill. A dealer service department charges $250 to $450 for the same work. Not because their technicians are better, because their overhead is built around charging that rate, and they count on you not knowing what the service actually costs. Everything I've walked you through, the inspection steps, the exact intervals, the fluid specs by vehicle type, and what to do if you're inheriting an unknown service history, is organised and formatted in the Dealer Vault. It's a complete reference you can pull up from your phone in a dealer parking lot or a shop waiting room. I built it specifically so you don't have to rely on a service advisor to explain anything to you ever again. The link is in the description. But stay with me, because the next part of this video is what I'd call the most valuable 60 seconds for anyone even thinking about buying a used car. This is the part dealers hope you never see, because this is how they move a transmission-failing vehicle off the lot and onto your driveway before you ever know what you bought. How a failing transmission ends up on a dealer lot with a clean Carfax. When a transmission starts to fail, it sends signals in a specific sequence, subtle first, then undeniable. The people selling that vehicle know exactly what those signals sound and feel like because they drove it before they listed it. They know which ones a distracted buyer on a 10-minute test drive will miss. Here's the sequence, and here's how you break it. Start the vehicle cold. Don't let them warm it up for you first. Walk out, pop the hood, check the fluid with your test strip while the engine is cold. A warm vehicle shifts differently, sometimes better, and a seller who warms it up before you arrive is not doing you a favour. With the engine running and the vehicle still in park, let it idle for 2 minutes. Then shift to reverse. Count. On a healthy transmission, the engagement is firm and almost immediate. You should feel it catch within 1 second of selecting reverse. A delayed engagement, anything past 2 seconds, means worn clutch packs or degraded hydraulic pressure. That's a failing transmission. The seller knows. You just found out before they wanted you to. Now drive it. On the highway at 45 to 55 miles per hour, pay attention to what happens when the transmission shifts from third to fourth and from fourth into the highest gear. It should be smooth. You should barely feel it. Hesitation, a brief slip before it catches, hunting between gears, a shudder on acceleration. Any of those is the transmission struggling to hold hydraulic pressure through a gear change. That's not a need service situation. That's a this transmission is already failing situation. Come back from the test drive and check the fluid temperature. If the dipstick test strip now shows worse results than it did cold, that happens with severely contaminated fluid. The heat drives the oxidation markers up. You've confirmed what the symptoms told you. Then go to nhtsa.gov and pull the complaint database for that exact make, model and year. Search transmission. Some vehicles have hundreds of documented failure complaints at specific mileage ranges, patterns the manufacturer knows about, patterns that never became a recall. If that vehicle's profile shows up, you now know whether what you felt on the test drive is an isolated issue or a documented epidemic. And then, before you sign anything, before you hand over a deposit, before you let them run your credit, get a pre-purchase inspection from an independent mechanic. A full inspection costs $100 to $150. It takes about an hour, and it gives you a report written by someone with no financial interest in whether you buy the car. A transmission replacement is $3,500 to $8,000. That is not a close decision. If the seller refuses an inspection, if they say the lot doesn't allow third-party inspections, if they tell you other buyers are interested and you need to decide today, that pressure is the answer. Walk away. Every legitimate seller with a legitimate vehicle tolerates a pre-purchase inspection. Every single one. There is a version of you that walks onto a dealer lot or into a service department next week. And that version knows more about what's happening inside that vehicle than the person trying to sell it to you. They will sense something different, not in an obvious way. But the questions you ask, the specific things you look at, the fact that you brought a white paper towel and a $1 test strip, that changes the dynamic completely. The service advisor who quotes $400 for a transmission flush is going to meet a customer who knows the fluid costs $12 a quart and the job takes 20 minutes. The used car seller who warmed the vehicle up before your arrival is going to find out you checked the fluid cold. The dealership that relies on information asymmetry to generate service margin is going to lose that edge. On you, specifically, today. That's not an accident. That's what this is for. The system that produced a $3,000 repair out of a $150 service is not a natural disaster. It is deliberate. Service intervals engineered long enough that failure happens on your dime. Warning lights absent by design. Fluid specs kept obscure enough that the wrong product gets sold at markup. None of it random. All of it profitable. You just stepped outside of it. If this reached you before the repair bill, instead of after it, send it to someone. A family member buying a car this month. A friend who's been putting off that weird noise for 6 months. A neighbour who's never heard the phrase lifetime fluid questioned before. Every person who watches this is one less easy target. That's the actual purpose of this channel. Not views, not subscribers, damage prevention. Subscribe if you want to stay ahead of what they're doing. Because next time we're going into the F&I office, the finance and insurance room at the back of every dealership. And I'm going to show you exactly how a $3,000 warranty product gets buried inside a monthly payment so small you won't notice it until you've paid twice what the car was worth. That one is going to make you genuinely angry. It should.